That is the book we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to put on makeup. It's called Hormone Repair Manual by Laura Bryden, MD. Sorry, ND distinction, naturopathic doctor. Just so get ready with me, makeup/book club. I'm trying to read a book a week now because I thought that was a good idea. I have so many books. I don't know. Everything that I put on my face, I will mention in show notes. I'm trying a couple new things out, so I will mention that as well. Last week, you all were incredible, by the way. You left some incredibly supportive comments. I am still in navigation mode and trying to have some, well, I am actually having fun with it. And it's weird, but part of that is me wanting to share this book with you. I've read previous books from Laura Bryden, and this is, by the way, this is from Ayuna. This is from Beauty Heroes. I told you there would still be some beauty. I've been trying this out. I don't know if I'm going to do a full scorecard. And this is a tinted treatment called Velo X. There's a lot of details that I need to explore, but I tried a little bit of it, and that's why there's some mattifying on the face. Anyway, we're giving it a shot. Beautiful packaging. It's glass containers, but normally you see my face have more glow because I will have just done a gua sha with oil. Did not do that today, and I missed it. Back to the book. There's a lot of discussion in this about what happens when you're in your 40s and 50s, perimenopause, menopause, and that. I really wish I had this book when I was in my 30s, possibly my late 20s. When I really like a book, I can't shut up about it, and that's what happened with this. So I knew that I wanted to bring it over to this channel because I really feel like it's a tricky path to navigate, and I can't tell you how many guests I've had on my podcast that have said, oh yeah, and then it just walloped me when I hit 45 or something. A lot of them have said the same thing, and I thought after all of those conversations, I don't want a wallop. And I don't want other people to have a wallop. Basically, this should be required reading now. It's coming from a naturopathic doctor. I'm not going to say that I would rely on one doctor's information. I'm not providing medical advice here, certainly. Another reason why I like this author is because she's coming at it from a very BS-free approach. She tells you what to look for. She dives into potential supplementation. She says, this is how you can speak to your doctor. Women, we have to advocate for ourselves. I've had recent life experiences, not for me, but for very close friends and family members, where that wasn't the case. And I'm like, wow. The perspective on aging is very, very positive and pragmatic. And I welcome that because the words perimenopause and menopause, just hormones, and it has a very negative connotation to me. And I was always like, oh, we'll think about that when we get there. I'm not that yet. We're here. And I mean, at a certain age range, you're automatically perimenopausal. I forget if it's mid-30s or whatever. Just don't freak out. Don't freak out about it. Learn about it and embrace it. Something that she said that really resonated with me was that this is a window of time, critical window of time where the female body is going through a recalibration. That's the way she put it. And she talked a little bit about a second puberty, which some of us didn't really love the first one, but it's kind of like that. So the body's recalibrating because it's preparing for the next phase. Let us not be scared of that. That is just what's happening, right? So I loved the word recalibration. I just realized I don't really have foundation here, but I don't really think I need it. Okay, skin. Any female at any age will benefit from this information. So the small problems that we might have had, maybe it's inflammation, maybe it's allergies, I don't know what it is for you, but these little things that we all kind of know, maybe they weren't fully on our radar, but we've experienced them in our body. Those can start to amplify. It's almost like during this recalibration, the way that I am thinking about it is things are changing. And I think when things change, it opens you up a little bit. And there's some vulnerability in the body and the brain. So as these things shift, your body is going to start reacting differently. And weaknesses start to be felt a little bit more strongly. Hopefully that makes sense. These windows, like I mentioned, happen again at multiple times in a female's life, whether you go through puberty, childbirth, pregnancy, postpartum, things like that. These are all times of physiological flux and change. You know how they talk about an illness when you're trying to get rid of a headache or you're just like, oh, I want this headache to go away. I want the cramps to go away. The perspective here is listen to the body. And I know that we've heard, like a lot of this stuff we've heard, but the way she kind of packages it is really, really strong. So listening to the body during this time, or even before, if you can get a jump on it, so important. It's gonna set you up for either success or decline, probably at a faster rate, is what the book is saying. I'm not telling you this is gonna happen to you. You may be able to just chill on a couch with Cool Ranch Doritos and no water. And you're like, I sailed through it. I didn't even get one of those hot flash things. Everybody's different. Everybody is so different. I love this line. She says, your body needs you. I mean, come on. And what I also love too is this isn't like, take a salt bath. Self-care. Take some time off for yourself. It's not about that. That's not helpful for me. At least I don't really respond to that kind of a thing. This is an action plan that is very simple to follow. Well, it's simple on paper. It's not simple making lifestyle changes. Let's be honest. Dives a little bit further into what technically starts to happen. We know there's hormonal fluctuations. Progesterone's going away completely during this time. It happens over a long period of time. All of that is to say that these things can be very destabilizing for your brain. They can be destabilizing for your nervous system. They can be destabilizing for just your overall health and wellness. Your body, you name it. Yay. What a joy to be a woman. What a joy. This was fascinating, speaking of the brain and this recalibration window and how important it is to know this information to set you up for cognitive health. The brain undergoes a massive rewiring during perimenopause and during the first few years of menopause. If you are in them, I think you can attest to this. Let us know in the comments. The brain is a massive part of this, and that's why the moods, they deeply impact me. That was another reason why I need to do this. It starts to creep up on you. It's good to know that it could potentially happen. Recalibrating well puts you on the road to a healthy rest of your life in a nutshell. So how do we recalibrate, right? Well, I took all the pages and boiled them down into 4 things. Some of these will not surprise you. One of them is sleep. That's kind of annoying for a lot of people who can't sleep to hear. I get it. She talks a lot about supplementation in each section. Also lifestyle changes. Supplements are called supplements for a reason, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but listen, I believe that. But here they are, the 4 things. You want to soothe your nervous system. Happens to be one of my all-time favorite topics of the past 2 years. Maybe 3, maybe my whole life, but more so the past 2 years. Activate your parasympathetic nervous system. The rest and digest part, right? It's in there. We just need to tap into it. And I like to think of it as a muscle. So I'm going to talk about ways you can do that. Metabolic flexibility. Like, okay, cool. What do you mean? Metabolic flexibility means your cell's ability to shift between glucose and ketones for energy. This means you could exercise. A lot of these overlap with one another. So helping the nervous system, there's forms of exercise that do that. Intermittent fasting is discussed. It's not for everybody. I take pieces that apply to me and I try them and track them for myself. I don't like the books where they talk about, like a microbiome book I once read, and it was written by a doctor, and he was like, then you take this, then you take probiotics, and then you do this, and then you do a gut cleanse, and then you have to buy all these products which are available on my shop. Which, listen, I get wellness. It's a little creepy sometimes. This was not like that. This was just recommendations of paths you can go down, recommended dosages that you should confer with your medical expert to go to your doctor if you like them. And if you don't, find a new doctor. That's a part of advocating as a female. If you can, health insurance in the US is abysmal, but that's not what this video is about. We're gonna keep moving. And then talks a lot about insulin resistance. That came up quite a bit. And that was a red flag for me because there is a history of diabetes in my family. 3rd out of the 4, move your body. Talked about exercise. Movement in general, different ways of moving your body. This is key and paramount. I'm super excited that I started on my walking journey. I'm a human, you're supposed to walk, but sadly in these days, it's a journey. As of December of last year, I was really sick and tired of saying that I was going to walk multiple times a week and keep up with it consistently and not doing it. every week. I would say I was doing that. I wasn't doing it. So I found an accountability. I've been doing that. I want to say on average, I'm walking 6 times a week on a treadmill. I have a treadmill. I'm lucky enough to have that. It is so grotesquely humid out here. I'm also really not a summer person, so I'm going to sound like a whiny baby about that. I'm very grateful. I just don't like summer very much if it's not my favorite season. Hence the treadmill. It's downstairs. I can hop on it, hop off. If it's not easy and in front of me, then it's not going to happen. I'm trying to avoid any extra decision fatigue. She talks about strength training as well, which I'm starting to turn into that annoying person. It's like, no, you gotta strength train, no, you gotta strength train. Understanding that it is very intimidating, possibly overwhelming, and could be expensive if you're trying to approach it. That's how I felt. But I found a group training class that was a little bit more approachable, and that has worked for me. Actually, building muscle and maintaining muscle are part of that as well. The messaging I'm receiving from this book and so many others is you do not want to lose the muscle. No. We need the muscle. It helps metabolically. It helps cognitively. It helps insulin sensitivity. It helps your brain think better. It's kind of incredible if you want to not just live for a long time. I don't want to just live for a long time. I want to live well for as long as I possibly can. She talks about sleep as well. I'm not going to dive in too much to that. The topics of histamines also comes up. I was fascinated with histamines and how they can impact your health, specifically around different phases of your cycle or when your cycle's changing. So we know the 4, right? We have, I feel like I'm a teacher and I would be the worst teacher ever, I think. So you want to soothe your nervous system, focus on metabolic flexibility, movement, sleep. These are all things that overlap, as you'll notice, but to me, they're 4 buckets that kind of everything else falls into. So activating your parasympathetic system, very simple ways that you can do this. It's not really that it's hard, it's just staying consistent, right? So although it can be hard for some, depending on the abilities you have currently, the location you live in, I should say that, because it's not easy for everybody. Obviously, everyone's dealing with different circumstances. Get outside in nature. As I read this book, the more I wanted to just move back to California. Outside of the whole fire thing, I just was outside way more. I'm going to try again and put, I think for these videos, I'm going to have to put on eyeliner beforehand because talking and thinking and putting on eyeliner, social connections. So connections with other humans. I wasn't very good at this outside of work for a really long time. And then I went to a yoga class and I became part of a community there. So for me, the easiest way to do this is to take some sort of class or volunteer with some sort of group that's free. Things like that are the way for me to find healthier connections. I feel like the default would be school and work, and school was better. Work can even be your pet. They talk about social connections with your beautiful angel baby pet. I can attest to that. It's changed my life. Totally changed my life in very small ways. Engages the vagus nerve, activates oxytocin. Happy oxytocin. Breathing techniques. I think I'm going to mention the book Breath again. That was so fascinating. I have a great breathing technique. I can walk you through that in a future video if you'd like. I can absolutely share that information. It is very simple. That's another one that I've told way too many people in my life about. I do it usually every morning, although I have fallen off that wagon. From a dietary perspective, stabilizing blood sugar. You're going to hear this a lot throughout the book. You're going to also hear it in tandem with insulin resistance, reversing insulin resistance or preventing insulin resistance if you potentially have that problem. Supplement-wise, B vitamins and magnesium, certain types of B vitamins. Magnesium was repeated over and over again. This woman is a very big fan of magnesium for something that can help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. She talks about the types of magnesium. Just because I say I take something doesn't mean you should. I have just started taking a magnesium biglycinate and I do half a scoop. I haven't had any problems with it. Before I was taking a blended magnesium, which I think was it was like throw them all at her and see if it helps. She says, you need a magnesium supplement if you take a magnesium supplement and then you notice a difference in either muscle cramping, mood, being able to sleep better. Another interesting fact here, by the way, this is the new Iris and Romeo mascara. This is a first impression. When your body's under stress, one of the fun reactions that it has is to pee out magnesium. This is kind of nice for volume. Hard to see maybe. It's drier than I'd like, but it's still gripping. And I like that. Magnesium can have contraindications with other medication quite often. So you can't just go, hey, I'm going to take a magnesium supplement because everybody told me to, including Britt. I'm technically not telling you to do that. I'm just referring to, just check it out. And then people who have kidney issues, really, I know that that's not a good thing because my dad does. And I've been looking into renal friendly supplements and diets and things like that for a bit. So things to consider. She talked about mood and how, that was one of if you've been going through it, you know. So mood was another thing I was looking at. She discussed supplements that were supposed to be mood supporting and that don't help your mood. One of the ones that doesn't help is dairy. Not for everybody, but for those who can't digest A1, you can probably digest A2. She discusses how that means you do or do not have an enzyme in your system that causes this kind of histamine reaction. And the closer you get to your perimenopause years, the more common it is for allergies to develop. Another just fun fact. So you might not have had a really bad dairy reaction when you were in your 20s, but maybe in your 30s and 40s, you're like, wow, that's crazy. Here's my personal anecdote on dairy. Before my period, I am like, if you put a block of cheese in front of me right now, the chances are that I would eat that and then I would have a tub of ice cream. I wouldn't because I'd be super sick, but you get my point. I crave it like crazy. And I noticed when I started eating more dairy during the luteal phase of the cycle, my mood is ridiculously out of whack. I'm emotional, and I made this association when I was having a lot of smoothies and a lot of cottage cheese because I was trying to get my protein intake up, which she does talk about in the book as well. So I'm considering doing a test elimination diet with dairy. I've done it before. I do think it needs to happen. Also high cholesterol and things like that. So it's something I'm personally considering, but it was nice to see it validated by somebody like this. Magnesium and taurine are things that she says she recommends to a lot of different clients. She talks about the types and the levels. B12 was really interesting. Very into the B vitamins. My mom's been saying this to me forever. By age 50, you have at least a 40% chance of being deficient in B12. My mother takes a ton of B12. The woman has more energy than anybody I've ever seen. Sometimes it can cause anxiety though, so just be careful. Zinc is very important for mood, as well as B6 is important for mood. So you can do a B12 complex. There are certain types of B12 that you might want to consider versus other. And she tells you in there very clearly, you need to take a masterclass to figure it out. It's so great. So then you can take that, and then sometimes she'll put a prompt underneath and be like, here's what you ask your doctor if you want somebody else to sign off on this. It's so well thought out. Moving and building muscle, so that's the other key pillar. The main goals really at this stage are reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, and building muscle. I feel like I don't need to harp on this one. She talks a lot about adding protein at every meal to support the muscle maintenance, let alone muscle growth if you want to go in that direction. I am personally struggling with having all of that protein. If you have kidney issues, you do have to consider the amount of protein you eat. So this really is a personal approach, but that's something else that I'm thinking of kind of documenting and sharing. Not a real big fan of alcohol, not a real big fan of it. I do like a cocktail or a drink, but I have cut back drastically that I was drinking that much. But I would have a glass of wine probably every other night, maybe every night. Certainly during the pandemic, I had my wine, or my gin and tonic was one of my favorites because wine started making me sneeze more and getting migraines and my allergies and histamines for that, which is really common. Personally, I have noticed that it has really helped me and my mood. I also, with strength training, cannot work out if I'm dehydrated. She doesn't talk a lot about dehydration or hydration in this. I suppose it's common sense at this point. Menopausal women do need a little bit more protein than you did before that time. Listen to this one. This is kind of interesting. Food cravings can be a symptom of food sensitivity. Often the craving is for the food that causes the sensitivity, which is like a sick trick. Like, come on, body. Like, don't even crave it. Just dive into sugar. I don't have a sugar addiction or issue. I do not have a huge sweet tooth. It happens once in a while and I get a chocolate chip cookie and I'm fine. I've always been like that. I don't know what that is, but I know that it has a grip And I know that our food system is created for it to have a grip. So you will find that information in the book. Dairy is not the devil, but it can evidently not be helpful. I don't know. She doesn't advocate for completely eliminating it, although at some point she says try not having it in your diet for a couple weeks. I think the keyword here is just try and then see how it goes. But it can cause heavier periods. It can cause mood swings. Again, this is primarily A1, I believe. The other alternatives that are going to have as much of an effect, butter, goat, a couple of other things are mentioned in there, so you're not going to get as big of a reaction if you do have a sensitivity. This made me realize that the food and mood journal that I've kept through apps and stuff in the past, that was imperative. I think you have to be very careful. I think that can create a sense of extra stress, potentially trigger disordered eating and things like that. It has certainly gotten me a little too focused on food in the past, but I've caught it. I've caught myself. She does talk about wheat. I'm not going to talk a lot about wheat because I feel like we all know what's up with wheat. If you keep track of how your skin reacts and your body reacts to wheat, then you know whether or not you have a sensitivity, and not everybody has one. Enjoy the bread. The only thing that I'm looking at is the blood sugar stabilization. So that is huge. Insulin resistance is something that I'm going to continue to dive into. Again, it's for a personal reason. And I also think it's just something that's going to be really helpful. I might try intermittent fasting again, but I will see. The keyword is try to see how I respond to it. The first time, I think I overdid it, which is par for the course for me. Other things, vitamin B6 can really help with allergic symptoms as well. I know I talked about it for mood, but I think she recommends it more for allergies. Quercetin really helps with histamines. It's a bioflavonoid. My mother's been telling me to take it for at least 20 years. You'd think I would listen to her. Just generally avoiding things that you're sensitive to. That's just going to help you try to recalibrate and get a handle on things before you're going into this next phase. Migraine prevention is discussed. I have had ocular migraines in the past. Oftentimes it's due to lack of sleep and overwearing my contact lenses, and sometimes too much red wine. Magnesium really helps. Iron can help if you're getting them after your period, not before or any other time of the month, potentially, she says. I already talked about sleep. Progesterone during the luteal phase. This is something my functional practitioner did talk to me about. So she was mentioning how I can take topical progesterone. She does go into progesterone creams. So she does lay it out for you pretty quickly, short and sweet. B12 and then MCT oil, which I found to be very interesting. She says that MCT oil can boost ketones and brain energy. It may help with migraines and memory loss. I didn't know that. That's the high level of it all, but it really does ladder back into those first 4 pillars with the understanding that this doesn't have to be like a terrifying time necessarily. If you can find ways to consistently incorporate those into your life, I personally take small baby steps. I try something out for 1 week, once a day, see how it works. If I like it, great. It goes back to that giant game of hot and cold, right? So I'm still doing that. I'm just doing that with my personal health. I would swap out conventional beauty and I would bring in clean beauty, right? So this is me doing the same thing, but applying it to lifestyle swaps. If you want to see more about that, I can absolutely kind of fold that content in here. Again, I have some potential elimination diets I'm going to try, just with dairy and wheat, just to see. Sometimes we just go about it and we're going, and we forget like that rash is not normal. My body will tell me what's going on. At this age, I'm realizing you have to listen to it. Well, you don't, but it's probably a good idea to do so. So that's the high level. You want to focus on moving your body. You want to focus on calming your nervous system. You want to get that sleep, and you want to focus on metabolic flexibility. I highly recommend this book. I couldn't recommend it more. I'll have a link below. I don't have a promo code. Wish I knew the author. Really wish I knew the author. Actually, that would be so cool. And this is the completed look. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have anything that you want to share in the comments, that's great. Let's just try and keep it a non-scary zone for people. Have at it. Be the light for the people who are really confused right now and grasping at straws. But ultimately, check out the book if you haven't. Talk to your doctor. And if you're not happy with where you're at, keep asking. We have to advocate for ourselves. I have been very guilty of not doing it in the past, and I have regretted that. And I've learned my lesson. So let this be a reminder to anybody watching that, you have resources like this now that can help you, and it's not a tune. You're not going to have to read this for 17 years to get the benefits. It's another reason why I like the book. Hope you enjoyed this one. This is like a little book club / get ready with me situation. Have an incredible rest of your weekend. That's it. Bye.